welcome to another story of Pieces of the Past Resumed, sponsored by the Campbell County Historical and Genealogical Society. Today's story will be on the mysterious disappearance of George William Hawkins, a local constable of Campbell County. George Hawkins was last seen on April 3, 1961 in Newport, Kentucky. On the morning he disappeared, he left in his tan 1959 station wagon. Hawkins called home around 1 p.m. and said he was on his way home. On April the 7th, Dayton, Kentucky police found Hawkins' two-tone 1959 Plymouth Fury station wagon parked at the river's edge. Who was George Hawkins? Why was Hawkins' car found at the Ohio in Dayton? What do you think happened? Let's look at the facts as we have researched them. Hawkins was born 18th of August 1915 in Persimmon Grove to George Thomas Hawkins and Estella Kuckendorfer. Persimmon Grove is a small community south of Alexandria with farms and quiet neighborhoods. On the 11th of May 1940, George married Mary Dell Nordwick, daughter of Clarence and Nellie Nordwick in Latonia, Kentucky. They lived in Persimmon Grove and he worked in a grocery store there. In the December 7th, 1941 election, George was elected as constable of the 7th District, which was Persimmon Grove. On January 22nd of 1942, George reported to Judge Ray L. Murphy that a man he had hired to obtain data on gambling interest in the county had attempted to collect hush money. So began the career of George Hawkins as constable until he disappeared. He became involved in the gambling world around the county in efforts to curtail the illegal games. In January 1942, he raided the Yorkshire Grill in Newport. The owners claimed they refused to give him free drinks, which led to the raid. In February 1943, Hawkins expanded his powers as constable by arresting 2 Ohio men in Persimmon Grove who were drunk and fighting, then putting them in jail. March 7, 1944, Hawkins arrested Ruth Schmidt for drunk driving and hitting his car. She was the wife of Albert Schmidt, operator of the numbers racket that included Campbell County. Seeing evidence of gambling in her car, he obtained a warrant, but he claimed the evidence was gone when he returned to the car. With reports of the numbers racket being resumed in Covington and Newport, police in the 2 cities were instructed to curb any attempts of the operation to resume the racket. 3 days later, in the Kentucky Post of March 10th, Hawkins claimed he had the little black book and $3,007, which he turned over to the authorities. Pages had been ripped out of the book, supposedly containing the names of those police on the payroll. He also claimed that he saw Mrs. Schmidt given a bundle from a house on Saratoga known for gambling, who he claimed then sideswiped his car, so he pursued her through the streets of Newport. The story continues to be a bit mysterious. On March 17th, Hawkins met secretly with Magistrate Arthur Rollins concerning the seizure of the little black book from Ruth's car. Schmidt's lawyer claimed that the book, policy slips, and money were taken without a search warrant. Hawkins admitted that he had no search warrant, nor did Mrs. Schmidt's car actually sideswipe his car. He first denied seizing any property from Mrs. Schmidt and only later disclosed the seizure of the book, money, and slips, and admitted making the arrest without a warrant. The book was returned to the Schmidts. Supposedly, the little black book contained the names of all police officers and politicians who were being paid off, but when returned, the book had several pages torn out of it. On October 7th, 1944, Hawkins' Persimmon Grove store was robbed of $53 from the cash drawer by Boyd Rowland, 22, also of Persimmon Grove. Hawkins walked to the suspect's home and arrested him. Rowland was put in the Alexandria jail and was sentenced to a year in jail. Hawkins continued his pursuit of the gambling operations, confiscating several devices owned by the operators. He finally made someone mad. Early Sunday morning on May 19, 1946, small-time slot machine owners were blamed for the firing of a volley of shots at his Persimmon Grove store. Hawkins and his wife, who lived above the store, were away when the 9 shots were fired at the store. Hawkins continued to make enemies in the gambling world. On October 15th of 1947, while parked in Newport, someone stole his car. The auto was valued at $1,500 and contained his gun and cigarettes. Those responsible were later caught and sent to jail, but were not involved in the gambling in Newport. On April the 19th of 1949, George W. Hawkins, Persimmon Grove constable, opened the siren on his auto to appeal for the right-of-way as he sped toward Spears Hospital with a stricken patient. The patient, his mother, Mrs. Estelle Hawkins, 66, of Persimmon Grove, died a short time after admittance. On January 22, 1952, George Hawkins Sr., 72, retired farmer, collapsed and died in front of a sister's home in Persimmon Grove Road as he was walking toward the general store of his son, George W. Hawkins Jr., Persimmon Grove, a Campbell County constable. Over the years, Hawkins was also very involved in his community, volunteering with the Boy Scouts, his local church festivals, putting out a neighbor's house fire, giving out awards, teaching youth about the consequences of crime, and in 1953 was chair of the publicity for the Grand Slick PTA. November 24th, 1955, on a warrant signed by Hawkins, a raid was staged at the Spotted Calf Cafe in Newport, finding 30 patrons, confiscating $54.40 in cash, horse race sheets, and a federal gambling tax stamp. On August 18th of 1956, Hawkins visited the Stork Club for a soft drink and ended up conducting a raid of gambling equipment. The owner claimed again that he would not give Hawkins a drink for free, so that caused the raid. By December of 1956, Hawkins was the president of the Campbell County Band and Choral Association and presented a report to the parents and band members at a meeting at the high school in Alexandria during a supper meeting. On December 13th of 1956, Hawkins cited Jack Hoban, clerk in the Bridge Liquor Store in Newport, was selling liquor on Sunday. February 15th of 1957, Hawkins wrote a letter to the Kentucky Alcohol Beverage Control Board and made charges against local law enforcement officers and state liquor agents for, quote, failure to halt the multi-million-dollar illegal traffic in liquor on Sundays, end quote. If the state enforced this law, it would have had devastating financial consequences on bars and restaurants who were open on Sundays. On April 6th of 1962, the Kentucky Post reported that George William Hawkins was reported missing. Police speculated that he had drowned in the Ohio River, but his body was never found. So what do we know now? We know that Hawkins called home around 1 p.m. saying that he stopped by Charlie Lester's office, a prominent Fort Thomas lawyer known for his defense of the mob, to talk about an IRS audit, but was on his way home. Nothing in his voice suggested any trouble. When the car was found and examined, it had been wiped clean. Not a speck of dirt or tossed wrapper remained. Currently, all evidence gathered by local and state police is missing. In a 2004 Kentucky Post interview with former Mayor Newport Mayor Johnny Peluso, he claimed that George Hawkins was named the Egg Man because he sold eggs to the gambling clubs for $100 each. If they did not pay, then he would raid them. The family stated that if he ever collected money, they never saw any of it, as the family struggled for years after Hawkins' disappearance. George's wife, Mary Dill Hawkins, died April the 19th of 1994 without ever knowing what happened to her husband. So the mystery remains, and it may be up to you, the viewer, to decide what happened to George William Hawkins. His family still grieves. If you have a story or someone you would like to be presented here, please call the Historical Society at 859-635-6407.